Right, grade 8. Today we're going to look at how to record transactions that take place in the business in the cash receipts journal. Now, just to give a little bit of background, we've spoken about a number of things already this term and in term 1 with regards to a person or an entrepreneur wanting to start his or her business. And obviously we know that anybody wants to start a business or who starts a business does so because he or she wants to make a profit. Now, in order for us to see whether this business of ours is actually making a profit, we need to make sure that every single transaction that takes place in the business is recorded properly. Now, if we think back of the accounting cycle that we did in the previous unit, we spoke about the different steps in the accounting cycle. We've spoken about the fact that when there's money changing hands from the client to our business in return for either a product or a service, we call that a transaction. So we've dealt with that. Then we said every transaction that takes place, we need to record on a document. Now, that is obviously for record keeping, and we spoke about source documents, where we said the client usually gets the original source document and the business keeps the duplicate one. So we worked with the source documents. That is step 2. Now we're going to look at step 3, where the information on the source documents is recorded in journals or subsidiary books. That is our next step. Now, if I go to the next slide, why are we making use of journals? I'll get to that now. In term 1, we you learned many different accounting concepts, and we spoke about the fact that for every transaction that takes place, that transaction actually has to be recorded into a ledger account, into an account in the business. And then we briefly spoke about the fact that a ledger account looks like a big capital T. At the top, we put the name of the account. It's got a debit side, which is always on the left-hand side, and a credit side that's on the right-hand side. And then we also spoke about the double entry principle. And what does that mean again? That for every debit entry I make somewhere in an account in the general ledger, that same amount needs to appear somewhere else in another account, also in the general ledger. So for every debit, there must be a credit. Right. Now, if I can go a step back, if you have a small, simple business, nothing stops you from actually leaving out the ledger step, or the journal step in the accounting cycle. If you only have 1 or 2 transactions, maybe per day or per week, then you can literally run your business by entering your transactions straight into the general ledger accounts. But now we come to think of big businesses like Macro, Pick n Pay, Woolies, and so on. If they have to go and enter each and every single transaction that takes place on a daily business and basis, and just take one of these big supermarkets, can you imagine how many transactions that do take place or do happen on a day-to-day basis? There's no way that somebody there can sit in an office, and even if it's done electronically, that every single transaction can be recorded straight into the ledger accounts. It's just going to make those ledger accounts very, very big and cumbersome, and it's going to be difficult to find information if you perhaps need to go back and look up specific transactions or entries. So therefore, journals have been created as the step before the ledgers. So what's happening in our journals? Now in this grade 8 year, you're going to learn about the cash receipts journal, where we enter all transactions where the business receives money, and the cash payments journal, where we enter all the transactions where the business pays out money or buys something with money. So those journals have been created so that we can summarize the same type of transactions. And then at the end of the month, we only take the totals or the summaries of those journals and we take it to the general ledger account. So that is where journals come into play. Right. Now, let's just recap a little bit on some theory before we move on to the actual format of the cash receipts journal. So what is a service business? Now, in grade 8, we're only working with service businesses, and that's a business that provides a service to its customers and then in return receives an income. In grade 9, we're going to look at trading businesses or retail businesses where we're actually buying stock and then selling it to our customers. So that's coming next year. Now, some examples, and you can think of many others, of service businesses include hairdressers, electricians, plumbers, beauty salons, and so on. We also acknowledge that there's lots of businesses where the business can render a service and sell products. And I'm immediately thinking of a hairdresser that can cut people's hair and treat their hair, but also sell shampoo and conditioner and so on. For the purpose of grade 8, we're only going to look at the rendering of the service part. So just keep that in mind. And then in the theory that we've done in term 1, what do we call all the income that a service business receives from rendering a service? We call that current income. So keep that in mind for our journal that's coming up now. And what type of transactions will we then record in the cash receipts journal? We have spoken about it just now. Any transaction where our business receives money or cash. And then what type of transactions will we record in the CPJ? Those will be all the transactions where the business pays out money or buys something, and that will go to the CPJ. The CPJ will look at a bit later after the CRJ. Now, right, for my grade 8s at my school, we are still using the actual journal books, the 8-column books. Now, I just quickly want to show, I'm going to show you 3 slides, and I'll come back to this one for those of you who are perhaps not in my school and also listening to this presentation. Now, this is an example of an 8-column book. Grade 8, you'll see that this one, if you look at the details column here, this one over here, it's fairly small, and then it's got lots and lots of small columns, and at the end we have a big column again, small one, and an amount column. So your book might look like this. Then I've made taken a photo of another journal book where you'll see the details column, or on the left side of the page, the double page, the details column is fairly big. There's a number of columns, but there's no like biggish column at the end of the second page or on the right hand side. So this is how you will deal, or how can I say, manage the columns in your book. So you must go and have a look at what your journal book looks like, and then just use it accordingly. Other schools make use of worksheets or workbooks, and these might obviously be printed as well. So you'll see that I've made the same examples, or used the same examples or explanations for the printed version as the one that I'll be looking at now. From the top. So let's have a look. Grade 8. So if we need to open a cash receipts journal, this is how we're going to do it. On the top line, before you actually start with recording the transactions for your business, you need to give your journal a heading. Now that's very important, and you'll see that every time we mark something, I will ask you, check, have you completed the heading? Right, so if we look, here's the heading of your journal, and it's this explanation over here. So every journal must have a heading. So we always start with cash receipts journal of, and then you write the name of the business. Now let's say it is Benny's handyman service, then you will write the cash receipts journal of Benny's handyman service. Then you make a dash, then you write the month and the year, for example, March 2020. So for your CRJ, this is how your heading should look. Then we look, you'll see there's a little bit of a space, and we normally write it towards the end of the double page. you must number your journal. So this one, you can usually give any number to your journal unless it is the first month of this business trading. Then it must be a 1. We'll talk about it a little bit later when we do an actual example as well. So it's CRJ, the abbreviation for cash receipts journal, and you must number this journal. Now, why is this important? Say, for example, you are now in the 6th month of doing business, and maybe you are at the end of the financial year and you get auditors or accountants in to come and check if your books have been done correctly and transactions have been done correctly, and they are querying a transaction. Then in the ledger, there will be a reference to the journal from where the transactions came, and then it's much easier to go and find a specific transaction. So your referencing, your numbering of your journals is very, very important. Okay. Now, just before we start, I'll also show it in my presentation that I'll do on the whiteboard as well. Grade 8s, those of you working in the actual journal books still, please note that it's either called the 8-column journal or the 8-column cash journal or an 8-column creditors journal sometimes, that we always work over a double page. You can probably see this as well, but I just thought let me clarify that. Always over a double page. Why? Because we want to use all these money columns. Okay, so we've dealt with the heading and the numbering of the journal. Now let's start with the different columns. You'll see the very first small thin column that we have here is our document number column. So here we will record the numbers of the source documents that we've used to record these transactions, and that is also very, very important. So let's have a look. Can you remember what source documents do we have for the CRJ? Where we receive money? First of all, we can work with, or we will use a duplicate receipt. Now, a duplicate receipt is obviously either when somebody comes into our store and pays for something, and it's usually when we also do not have a till in the business, you can issue a receipt, or for any other reason that we received money, we can issue a receipt. It's duplicate receipt. Why? Because we gave the original receipt to the customer or the client or whoever gave us the money. Then we have, if we have a till in our business, a cash register in our business, and we use that to record transactions on when we provide a service to the clients, then your source document will be cash register roll, that piece that stays, or that roll that stays inside the printer of the cash register. Now, some schools or textbooks make use of the abbreviation CRR for cash register roll. Some books say CRT for cash register type, and others use a tick, and that all means the same thing, that we refer to as a cash register roll when we had a till. Right, and then the last one that we could use or could have is when something happens, or where we received money, but the money was paid directly in the business's bank account. So we didn't receive the money in store. It was either a client paid via EFT, or the owner gave his capital contribution and deposited the money directly into the business's bank account. For any of those transactions where we didn't physically receive the money in store, we will use bank statement, BS, as our source document. You'll also see it when we do the actual exam. So this is our document number column. Right, and then something, it's not always very clear with the CRJ because we have quite a number of different documents that we can use. But let's say you're working with receipts, you're issuing a lot of receipts. All our documents in our journals must be in numerical order. So it must be like 1, 2, 3, 4. It can't be swapped around. Then you've either mixed up your dates, or especially when you get to the higher grades, you've maybe put in a transaction that doesn't belong into that specific journal. So just keep that at the back of your head. The next one is also a small column, is the date. So that's the date the actual date on which the transaction took place, and you also get that information from your source document. Right, then the next column is the details column. Here we record who gave us the money or why we received the money, and you give a little explanation or a description. Then this folio column, you can first, for now, for grade 8, leave out. We're only going to deal with that in grade 9 when we work with debtors, which we don't deal with in grade 8. So just so that you are aware of that column. Now you'll see we get to the money column. So each column, it's a little bit faint here, but each column has a bigger a section and then a small section. Now this is then for rands, and that small piece is for cents. In most cases, I see nowadays that we don't really work with cents anymore, but just so that you are aware of that. Now, one thing that I've seen often when students complete the journals is that they still put an R in front of the amount for rands. Now, grade 8, it's not necessary. We know that these are our money columns where we work with rands and cents, so please don't put an R. First of all, it makes it actually difficult to read the actual amount, and secondly, it takes time. And in accounting, we don't want to waste time on things that's not necessary. So you can leave out the R, you can just record the amount. Now, this first column that we have is the analysis of receipts column. Now, people, this is our, in normal terms that I call it, is the till column. So how does this work? This column we only use to indicate when we received money in the store and we've put the money in the till. So the analysis of receipt column is the till of the business. Now, what's happening? We first put the money in the till during the day as the transactions take place, and then at the end of the day, we take out all that money that we received and put in the till, and we take the total amount to the bank. Now, you know that if I say at the end of the day, many stores nowadays close 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night. So there's no way that I can take the money to the bank on the same day that I've received the money, unless you may be a big enterprise or retail enterprise where you've got some of those drop safes that those security companies come and collect. Then it can actually physically go into the bank, but in normal small business will most probably only go to the bank the next day. So I acknowledge that, and that's how it actually works in real life. But for accounting purposes, and just to make it a bit easier, we say that all the money that we receive on that specific day in the till, we take out, and the next, and that same day, we then take to the bank. All right. We only go to the bank once a day. So keep that in mind as well. You wait until the end of the day, close your till, take out all that money, and then put an amount in your bank column. So after analysis, we will always have our bank column. Now, all money that we receive in the business, or for the business, will be recorded. Those amounts will be recorded in the bank column, either straight into the bank column. If it didn't appear in analysis because we did not receive the money in the business, in the till, or first in analysis and then taken to the bank column at the end of the day. Right, so every single amount will be recorded in the bank column. Now, after the bank column, you'll see, and this one is in grade 8, you won't have any other money column except for current income. There's some spaces left for more accounts that we can write down. Now, does a business owner decide which columns to open and what names to write in? These columns we normally reserve for transactions that take place a lot or many times during the month in the business. Why? That's actually the aim of the journal, is to summarized transactions. So the more transactions we can summarize, the easier it is to just take those summarized totals to the ledger at the end of the month. Now, just to give you an idea, in grade 9, we will have analysis, which is just a total column, bank, sales, cost of sales, later on debtors control. So then those spaces will be filled up with specific accounts. For grade 8, the only other one, or the only account that we have a lot of transactions for is current income, because we're a service business, we provide a service, and therefore we should hopefully receive lots of income for rendering services to our clients. So this is our current income column. Now, you'll see here at the end, we have our sundry accounts. Now, this section we use for any transaction that does not have its own column. So now we're immediately thinking of capital. When the owner gives capital to the business, there's no column for capital. Nothing stops the business owner from opening an account and opening a column for that. That is his prerogative, but mostly we use the sundry account section for that. Another one could be when we perhaps are renting out a part of our building or our premises, and the tenant pays us rent. There's no column for rent income, so we will record it in the sundry accounts. And then sometimes we might receive interest if we have a positive bank balance from the bank that we have our bank account with, and they might add some interest onto our bank's balance, and that will also be recorded in the sundry accounts. So once again, in the details column, we will write the name of the account, for example, capital. This folio column for now you're going to leave open. We'll use that when we post to the general ledger a little bit later on in the year, and then the amount for that specific transaction. Right, I think that's more or less just an explanation of the different columns and the setting up and how to prepare the format of the cash receipts journal so that you can actually start with recording the transactions. One thing that you can keep in mind, but we will speak about it when I do an example with you just now, is that every journal at the end of the month we need to total our columns, because when we then do posting to the general ledger, we're going to use those totals, but that will come up soon. All right, so now if I go to this slide, you can just remember that that's another format. If you have a book that looks like that, it will just help you to prepare your columns and start with the naming and numbering of your columns. Then those of you who have worksheets or work on worksheets, this is just the same explanation on your worksheet. Okay, grade 8, let's go and have a look at how to complete a cash receipt journal. So here is an example. I'm going to try my best once again to enter it here on the slide as we work, so please just bear with me. Right, so here is an example of what you will see for a business and how to record those transactions. The instructions are: record the following transactions in the cash receipts journal of Sparky Electricians, so that's the name of the business. Make provision for columns for analysis of receipt, bank, current income, and your sundry account. So they tell us what to open. You'll see that over here I've got a worksheet. Those of you working with the actual journal books, you will have to go and open those columns and prepare your columns for the exercise. And then they tell us a close of the journal at the end of the month. Okay, so what month are we doing? For which month are we doing this, CRJ? For the month of March 2019. So let's start by writing our heading for this journal. I'm just going to do that and see if it works. Right, so what is our heading for a cash receipts journal? It is cash receipts journal of the business's name, which is Sparky Electricians. All right, and then remember the month and the year, and there they told us it is March 2019. Okay, and then towards the end we need to number our journal. Now, grade 8, they haven't actually mentioned or told us what should be the number of the CRJ. But if you read the very first transaction there, it says Sparky started his business by depositing 100,000 rand. So he started the business. So then if he started the business, my number for my journal must be CRJ, the first cash receipts journal for this specific business. Right, so now let's start with the actual transactions. The first one says, Sparky started his business by depositing 100,000 Rand via EFT in the current bank account of the business. And the day the transaction took place was on the 1st of March. Now, okay, so ask yourself, did we receive this money in the store? No, definitely not. First of all, you would really be not very clever to walk around with 100,000 Rand cash nowadays. And it told us that this money was deposited directly into the business's bank account via EFT. So where are we going to see this transaction? What is going to be our source document? It's going to be bank statement. All right. So our document number is just bank statement. The day the transaction took place, sorry, just get that, was on the 1st. I'm going to use the same one there. So in the day column, we write the 1st. Okay, in the details column, we write who gave us this money, or why did we receive this money? And we received this money from Sparky, right, the owner. Okay, so this goes into Sparky, would be better. Sparky, right. Do we write anything into the folio column? No, we don't, because we leave that for grade 9. Now tell me, that 100,000 Rand, do I need to put that, or must I put it in analysis of receipt? No, I mustn't, because I did not receive the money in the till. So I'm going to leave analysis of receipt open. Where did that money go to? Where do we put all money that we receive? We put it in the bank. This one was put into the bank account for us because the owner made a direct deposit, direct EFT. Right, then why did we get this 100,000 Rand? We received it because the owner used it to start the business. Now, when the owner gives money to the business in order to start this money, what do we call it? We call it capital. The owner gave a capital contribution. Now tell me, is there a column for capital in the CRJ? No. So what do? We go to the sundry account. So in the sundry account, in the amount column, I put 100,000 Rand, and then we leave for now the folio column, and in the details column, I write the name of the account. Why did I get the money? Why did the business get the money? Because the owner gave capital. Right, and that was then the transaction on the 1st. Good. Let's start with the next transaction. On the 2nd, what do they say there? They said, sublet a part of the building to Be Clever for 2,600 Rand, issued receipt 001. Okay, so now it looks to me as if the tenant literally did come in and gave us either the 2,600 Rand, or if he's very old-fashioned, he paid us with a check and issued the check for 2,600 Rand. Why do I know that? Because the transaction said we issued a receipt. So that means the person, the Be Clever, had to come into this. So our document number is then 001, because they said issued receipt 001. Good. Then, who gave us that money? That is the name of the tenant, and that is Be Clever. So that you will put into your details column. And just before we go on, the date is the 2nd. So we can write in the day column the 2nd. Good. We did get the money in the business in the till, because the tenant came and gave us that money, we issued a receipt. So in analysis of receipt, we will write 2,600. Now, grade 8, there's something that you need to remember from now on. Remember, we said we only take the money to the bank at the end of the day, and we only go to the bank once a day. So before I can go and write the 2,600 Rand in the bank column, I need to quickly check if there wasn't another transaction that took place on that same day. So let your eyes just go down a bit, and there it is. Still on the second, you can see that there was another transaction. The cash register roll shows 3,500 for services rendered. So can I put the money in the bank yet? No, I'm leaving that 2,600 Rand in the analysis of receipt in the till. But I must still go and tell or record why did I receive that money. And why did we receive the money? Because the tenant gave us the 2,600 for rent. Is there a column for rent? No. So I go to the sundry accounts once again. I enter the amount, the 2,600 in my amount column, and then in my details column, I write why did I receive the money, or the name of the account that is affected by this transaction. Why did we receive it? The tenant gave us rent. Now remember, we have rent expense and rent income as possible accounts in our business. And I'd like you to write rent income so that you don't get confused by the two, especially when we do posting to the ledger. So that's rent income. Good. Now let's move on to the next transaction on that same day. The cash register roll showed 3,500 for services rendered for the day. Good. So our source document, remember what I said, for cash register roll, you can either make a tick or write CRR. Some textbook use CRT. Let's use CRR, cash register roll. The day is still the second. Now you can write 2 again there, but it's not necessary, and it actually makes it easier if you don't write it. Then it's easier for you to see which transactions took place on the same day. So you can just leave the second open. Then, why did we receive this money? Because we rendered a service to a client. So we can just write services rendered in our details column. Right, services rendered. Once again, we leave open the folio column. Then what was the amount? It was 3,500 Rand. We definitely received it in the store, in the till, because it says according to the cash register roll. So we can put the money in the till, 3,500. Okay, now we still haven't taken the money to the bank. Quickly check. Was there another transaction on the second? No, it doesn't look like it. So, actually, I can write in the columns. So, let me just get now to my table. Now, at the end of the day, once you're done with all the transactions for that day, you add up. You add the 2,600 plus the 3,500. Now, what is that? It looks to me like 6,100. Now, see, now I just need to get to my table. Just give this thing a second to go away. So we're going, just do that. Here we go. We're going to draw a line at the end of the day. Just want to get a bigger, thicker pen to show that we are now closing the till. Apologies, I don't think that is what I wanted. Just one there. Just do that one. And we draw a line to show that we've now closed the till and we are taking the money out of the till and we're taking it to the bank. Now that 6,100 we take to the bank on the last line for that transaction. So in line with the 3,500, just want to see if I can more or less get it the same size. Okay, so 2,600 plus 3,500, that gives us the 6,100, and that is what we then taking to the bank at the end of the day. Okay, now don't forget, we still need to say why did we receive that 3,500, and that is for services rendered. Now we know that services rendered is called current income in the books of the business. So now I can type directly into there. It makes it much easier. Let's just make it, maybe I'll do it at the end. Right, so that is then the, not the 6,100, sorry, the 3,500 that we received for current income. Right, that is then the end of the second transaction on the 2nd of March. Let's move on to the 14th. The 14th says cash received for services rendered, 940 Rand according to the cash register roll. So once again, we're going to have the cash register roll. Actually, I think it will be easier this way. Cash register roll, that is our source document. What is the day? It is the 14th. Right. Why did we receive this money? Because we rendered services. So we write that into the details column. Good. What is the amount that we received? 940 Rand. Did we get that money in the till? Yes, we did, because it is according to the cash register roll. So we will put the amount in analysis of receipt. That is 940. Right, what does our rule say? Before I go put the money in the bank, check. Is there another transaction that's happening on that day? No. So then I close the till and I take the money to the bank. So I'll put that 940 there, and then I just want to draw that line again. Let's quickly do that to show that I've closed the till and I've taken the money to the bank. Good. Why did I receive this money? Because of services rendered. So I'm going to put it in the current income column. Right, that is then the transaction on the 14th. The last one that we have on the 31st, the bank statement from FNB showed an amount of 109 Rand received as interest. So obviously we had a positive bank balance, and FNB rewarded us a little bit with some interest. Now, once again, the bank statement showed it, so our source document will be bank statement. Good. The day was the 31st. So we can write that into the day column, 31st. And then from whom did we receive this money? From FNB. That is the bank that we have our bank account with. So in the details column, you're going to write FNB. Great. Did we receive that 109 Rand in the bank, in the till? No, we didn't. The bank directly added it onto our bank's balance, so we didn't even see that money. So can we put it in analysis of receipt? No, we're going to take it straight to our bank column, and we write the 109 Rand. Then we ask ourselves, okay, why did we receive this money? Because we received interest. Is there a column for interest? No. Then I take it to the sundry accounts, 109 Rand, and then I leave the folio for now, and in the details column I write, why did I receive this money? Because of interest that we received. So interest income. Once again, we do also get interest expense, so I think it's just better that we write interest income, then we won't get confused. Right, now, at the end, this is then the last transaction for this business. At the end of the month, we need to add the columns, the money columns, to get totals, because those are the totals that we're going to use to post to the general ledger. Now, analysis of receipt will never have a total. We do not add analysis. Why? All the money that we did receive in the till, we took to the bank. And you see that 2,600 plus 3,500 went to the bank as 6,900 or 6,100. The 940 Rand went to the bank as 940. So everything that was in the till ended up in the bank column. So we will never total analysis of receipt. Okay, so what do we do at the end of the month? We draw column totals. I just want to make them a little bit thinner. See, draw the table. So we'll make them a little bit thinner to get totals. You can draw a line there, but we never total there. Just do that again. Right, okay, so now we can add up. So you take your calculator and you add 100,000 plus the 6,100 plus the 940 plus 109. And then I hope my total is correct. Please always check me. 107,149. That is the total of the bank column. So the total amount of cash that we received in this month was 107,149. If you add up current income, you should get 4,440. And then if you add up your sundry accounts, you should get 102,709. Now, grade 8's a way for you to check whether you have done your adding or calculations correctly, is that the bank columns total must always be equal to all the other columns that you have got their total. So check for yourself. Is 107,149 equal to 4,440 plus 104,709? Then you know that you've done your calculations correctly. So when we're finally done with the practicing of the CRJ, and we'll move on to the CPJ, and after that we're going to use these totals to post to the general ledger. Great. I hope that this explanation helped you. I will also be doing the same explanation that I've done here on this presentation on the physical whiteboard for students to see. You can now go and complete activity 1, which I'll also include the worksheet as well as the solution, so that you can see if you can manage to complete the CRJ on your own.